Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. I'm Nikki from Genic Fashions, and in this video I will be recreating this dress. So I saw this dress in a Facebook group and someone asked for a pattern for the dress. And I thought, you know what? I think I can recreate this dress without a pattern. Challenge accepted. So I was able to recreate this dress, and here is the finished product. If you think I did a good job recreating this piece and you'd like to see me recreate another piece, leave that in the comments below. Also, don't forget to press like, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I checked to see the width of the fabric that I will need, and I will not use any more. So I'm going to consider this as my entire width of fabric, and I'll save that to work on the sleeves. So I will fold this in half. And so now I have my fabric folded into 4. So as a pattern, I'll be using just a regular fitted t-shirt and my pencil skirt. So I'm going to be folding them in half and placing them against the fold of the fabric. Here's the fold of my t-shirt and here's the fold of my skirt. And I placed both on the fold of the fabric. What I didn't mention earlier is that the fabric stretches in this direction. All right, so I'm going to pin this and cut. Here I have the dress cut out and folded in half, but because of how I cut it, it's all pinned together, the left to the right. So in order to open that up, I am going to take out one pin at a time. I am going to repin the 2 top layers together, and I am going to pin the 2 bottom layers together. And by doing this one pin at a time, this allows me to make sure that I'm keeping everything nice and symmetric. Do that the whole way up the dress and at the shoulders. Here's what the dress looks like all opened up, and this is not what the dress is going to look like overall at all. I am going to try it on in order to figure out where and how I'm going to cut the neck and where I'm going to cut the seam that you see on the design of the dress that I'm creating. I just tried the dress on and I marked out what I wanted the neckline to look like and where I wanted the seams to be. So here, I'll bring it closer so you can see what I did here. So as you can see, there is a V shape with the pins at the top of the dress, and there's also some pins at the bottom where I'm going to separate the top from the waist. Before I start to cut the neckline and separate the top of the dress from the bottom, I am going to turn this back inside out. I'm going to take the pins that are joining the front and the back of the dress out, but I am going to repin just to mark out where I originally had everything joined at the back. When I'm cutting, I don't want to have to worry about the back of the dress at all, so I'm just completely removing it. Or not completely removing it, but removing it from the top. So I separated the back of the dress. It's back there. It's still partially pinned on, but it's no longer in the way. And the front of the dress is folded in half. So here I have the pins where I want the neckline to be. And here I have the pins where I want to separate the dress from the bottom. And in both cases, I do have to be careful to make sure that I'm giving myself enough seam allowance or enough allowance to hem. So though I want my neckline to be here, I am going to cut a little bit out from there so I have space to hem without going even lower than what I want it to look like. Same idea here. I want the dress to attach here, but I'm going to go a little bit lower into the skirt portion so that I don't have that part go up too high. Let's go, let's cut this out. Nice deep V, hopefully not too deep. All right, so now we have the shape for the top left and top right, and it looks like this. And we can go from there. Okay, so I'm going to pause the tutorial here because it is worth mentioning at this point. Here is where it would probably have been worthwhile to create pattern pieces for the top part of this dress. So if I had created pattern pieces, then I would have been able to create a seam allowance for the two top portions on the left and the right, and then I would have been able to get a deeper V. That said, I didn't want a deeper V. That V that I have is plenty deep enough. All right, let's get back to the tutorial. So here's what's left after I cut out the shape that I just cut out. And I would like to separate the back of the dress as well, but the back of the dress is going to just go straight across. I want to make sure that it's going straight across at the very same place that the front of the dress will meet over here. And so in order to get that line, I'm going to fold this to that level where I cut on the front. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut straight across. So here and here. I pinned the top front to the top back, and this is the shape I have. And I tried it on and it looks like it will work out. I'm going to cut it going a little bit circular, like in a bit of a circular shape, but I'm going to have those two at the shoulder meet in the same place. In order to make sure it's symmetric, as usual, I'm going to fold it in half, and then I will make that cut. Now we have the shoulders matching up in the front and the back, and here is the front with the deep V and the back with a more rounded shape. I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew the seams. So here and the seams at the shoulders with a zigzag stitch. Now that I've sewn my seams at the sides and at the shoulders, and I also trimmed off the sides, I am going to hem the neckline. So I'm just going to do a regular hem by folding and folding twice, but I'm going to make it a very, very thin fold. So here's what the top of the dress is looking like so far. Of course, I still have to create and add the sleeves, and of course I still have to finish the skirt portion and attach it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the skirt portion and I am going to sew up the side seams. Now my side seams of my skirt are sewn up and I have the top and I'm ready to attach it to the bottom. So in order to do that, I am going to leave the skirt right side out and I'm going to turn the shirt or the top part inside out and upside down so that the shape, that V shape here on the skirt and that V shape here on the shirt will match up to each other. Once I have my skirt stuck into the shirt, I make sure that everything is lined up seam to seam. So we have here the right side and the seams matching up, and I'm going to go ahead and pin at the seams first and pin all around to attach the skirt to the top part of the dress. I finished pinning the top part of the dress to the bottom part, and it is definitely worth mentioning the trickiest part. So where we have the V shape in the skirt and the V shape in the shirt, you want to make sure you're following the V shape at the top. This part in the skirt doesn't matter so much, so I'm just going to leave that out there and cut it off. So you want to make sure you commit to the shape at the bottom of the shirt and you sew everything together. Make sure as you're doing this there's no gathers. So now the top of the dress and the bottom of the dress are joined together. That was definitely the most challenging part, especially getting this part to line up. When it is on, it does look pretty good, and so I'm ready to start the sleeves. Whenever I'm ready to cut out sleeves, instead of using a pattern for the sleeve, I do like to use the shape that I already have at the armhole here, in order to trace the shape of the sleeve, where the sleeve is going to attach. That ensures that it's going to be nice and perfect to attach to the dress. As a reminder, I'd like my sleeve to go to about here, and then I would like it to flare out. So I measured from the top of my shoulder to this point, and I got a little bit over 13 inches. I measured around here and I got a little bit more than 9 inches. So I am going to measure 13 inches with a bit of seam allowance going down to here. And I also I'm going to measure 5 inches going here. So that's enough for seam allowance. And I'm going to use my tape measure to mark out the shape of the sleeve. Now I can pin that up and cut it out. Okay, now to get the second sleeve, we can either do the same thing again, or we can use the first sleeve, place it on top of the fabric, and trace out the shape. And one thing that I did not mention before, you want to make sure when you create the sleeve, it stretches in this direction, so it stretches around your arm. I attached the first sleeve off camera, and now I am going to do the same for the second sleeve. So my dress has to be inside out and my sleeve is right side out. And I'm going to take the sleeve and I'm going to stick it into the armhole of the dress. And I'm going to match up seam to seam. Right side touching the right side. And once I have my seams lined up, right side to right side, I am going to pin, and I'm going to go ahead and pin all the way around the sleeve. So as you can see, I pinned the whole way around, and now I'm going to take it to the machine and sew this together with a zigzag stitch. Alright, so now it's time for the final part of the sleeve, which is the bell part. Unfortunately, I'm running low on fabric, so my bell will probably be a little bit understated, meaning it will not be a very wide bell. It will be all I can afford to do with the fabric I have from this mystery fabric. Alright, so I want to make sure that the bell section of the sleeve is 11 inches long. So I'm measuring out that length here against, so this is the sleeve and this is my fabric, and I'm going to mark that out, but I'm going to give 1/2 inch extra for seam allowance. And again, I'm using my tape measure as a straight edge, kind of like a ruler. Alright, so now I'm going to use as much of the fabric as I can, and I'm going to take this and slant it to the edge of the fabric so I can get that bell shape as much as I can. And on the other side, I'm going to do the same. And I have the option to curve it at the end, and it might make it look a little bit more interesting instead of having a straight edge. So I'm going to have it curved. Almost like I'm wearing like a little tiny skirt on my arm. Alright, so I'm going to pin that and cut it out. Now I'm going to take these to the machine and sew up the side seam. The dress is inside out, and I have the bell part of the sleeve that I just made right side out. And just like how I attached the sleeve, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stick this into the sleeve that I already attached. And I'm going to match up the seams right side to right side. See here? There we go. Alright, so right side to right side like that. And I'm going to pin this attachment onto the sleeve. Once I have that pinned all the way around, I can take it to the sewing machine and sew it on with a zigzag stitch. The last step here is to hem the bottom and to hem each of the sleeves. And in order to hem this, we just do a double fold. So we fold and fold again, and we pin. I do that all the way around, and then I sew with a zigzag stitch.